Hi, my name's Josh Byers. I've been at Lakeside since 2005. I grew up in Colorado, just in a suburb north of Denver. I like to say that, I've been in church since I was a fetus and basically haven't left. And there's so many positive aspects to that because, obviously being young, I had all the Bible stories down. I knew the Bible from back to front. I could say the books of the Bible, all 66 in, 20 seconds or less. There were times where I would hear a message or I would hear a Sunday school lesson and I would be very convicted because they would talk about Jesus and his death and Jesus was the reason, and I had to believe in Jesus. And if I didn't believe in Jesus, then I was going to be doomed and I was going to be going to hell. And that thought scared me. And sometimes it scared me more than others. And I can remember countless numbers of times where I would hear something, I would get scared, I would go home, I'd be in the back of the car riding home, and I would pray, I'd say, Jesus, I don't want to go to hell, please save me. But there wasn't a specific time that I can even go back to right now and say, this was the moment, this was the absolute time where everything made sense to me, and God came into my life. I realized that Jesus is my Savior, I realized that he died, I realized that he rose again, and it was for me. Even though I can't point back to a specific date and time, I know what Jesus did for me. And I absolutely am confident that I'm saved. I know what I believe. I believe that Jesus rose again. I believe that he died for me. And I believe that it's nothing that I could have ever done. I know it's not a prayer. I know it's not the fact that I grew up in a Christian home. I know it's not the fact that I have Christian parents. I know it's not the fact that I went to church so much. But it's because Jesus did all the work. He lived a perfect life. He died and then he rose again. And I understand that now. And I know that that's what was important. And I know that that's what I believe. I think there's moments in every person's life where God does something amazing. And sometimes they can be really incredible experiences. We're on this absolute mountaintop and it changes our lives. And there's other experiences which God absolutely just rips the bottom out from under us. All throughout my childhood and growing up, I was inundated in just all things spiritual, all things Bible. It got a little mundane to me. And so I started to get more and more involved with activities at school, and I used that as an excuse to try and get out of going to youth group or get out of going to different activities or just trying to be in part of the church life. I started doing things that I never could have imagined myself doing. I started going to parties that I would have never gone to before. Started doing things at those parties that just weren't ever any part of my background. For whatever reason, I decided that I was going to come out here to Iowa and go to Bible college for a year. And that's what I told my parents. I said, I'll come out here, I'll go for a year. I think that's kind of what my mom did. And so I was going to come out here, go for a year, satisfy those requirements, and then go back to Colorado and pursue what I wanted to do. I came home for Christmas break, and I remember sitting in a Sunday night service at my church. I can barely remember the passage he preached on, but as I sat there, I was just absolutely overwhelmed by the thought that my life had been lived for me at that point. I was doing everything to please myself. I was doing everything I could to further my goals. I was just absolutely overwhelmed by God telling me that it was all about him and that I needed to make a serious change in my life. The best way I can explain it is I was completely broken, and I was so overwhelmed in the moment that I knew without a shadow of doubt that when that invitation was given, I was going to stand up, I was going to go forward, and I was basically going to give up my life. From that point on, I knew that God was going to have me do some sort of ministry, whether it was full-time or part-time. I knew that's what my life was going to be for. There are things that God is continuing to teach me about how the gospel works in my life on a daily basis, that it wasn't just about Jesus dying on the cross, and it wasn't just about me believing that and getting my fire insurance and being able to go to heaven, but it was more than that. It was now, because of what Jesus did, I need to live my life in a way that reflects that, how I can love my wife more, because I love Jesus, how I can love her because of what Jesus did for me, how I can love my kids more, how I can serve my church better, how I can use gifts that God has given me, not because they'll give me glory, but because they'll give him glory.